Highway, streets, bridges, roads, all of those things are mission critical to our infrastructure and absolutely critical for families, education, entrepreneurs, government folks, political folks. We all have to have this type of infrastructure. How are highway, streets, bridges, and roads, this particular industry sector, going to be affected by the turn? We're going to cover that today and a few more things in this episode. Welcome to the PioneerCast. I'm Dwayne Abels, founder and president of Pioneer IQ. We've been literally monitoring and forecasting industry sectors and geographic markets for over 24 years. There's never been a time that it's been more volatile. So I'm hoping that over the course of the next 10 to 12 minutes, you're able to pick something up that helps better equip you to grow your leaders and build and scale your organizations, leveraging all the craziness in the marketplace. Keith, thanks for joining us again today. This is one that we don't often cover from a recording and a podcast scenario, but it's one that's really consistent and a large majority of our clients are actually working in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is strange because this one we've given it a green light, and as you'll see as we pull the slide up, we've given it a green light because of what we think is coming, right? It's not basically where we are today, although today looks like spending is pretty good. And for every 3 or 4 positive, sort of tailwinds we can throw at people, there's also a handful that we got to worry about. There's a couple things out there that are, I'm not going to say hand grenades, but they are hand grenades that could kind of disrupt things. So let's talk about, first of all, highway and street construction current trends. So construction spending today, you're seeing about $130, $140 billion in spending on an annual rate. And that by itself is new all-time highs in actual spending, which is fantastic. There's a little bit of inflation involved in this, but not tremendous amount. But look at that surge between 2021, 2022, and where we are today. I mean, significant surge in spending. Some of that was pent-up demand over the last couple of years. But you and I were talking about off camera the fact that this is one of those industries where it's outdoor activity. Mm-hmm. None of these construction firms really went into, panic pandemic mode where they had workers not showing up and everyone's pretty much working there outside. So we didn't see a lot of that disruption. So unlike other industries like the supply chain, for instance, where, you had a year of almost no activity and all of a sudden everything loaded into 2021 and the system couldn't handle it. It just got overwhelmed. This one's been pretty steady. So what we see here is real spending. Mm-hmm. And that growth in spending is a very real surge in activity. So we think that this is going to continue to grow for a number of reasons. A lot of states are still seeing budget surpluses. Tax revenues are still pretty good. People are employed. People are working, paying taxes. And we still see budget surpluses in a lot of states. The other thing is that, you and I talked about it, and we did a project about 7 years ago where we looked at report cards of states and their, bridge, highway, street conditions. And as everyone well knows, the national report card is pretty bad. I don't know exactly where it is today, but we're typically batting C's and D's. And many states up there are now, hitting, D's and F's in their infrastructure. So as they get, some of the infrastructure bill funds where they can do some matching funds, plus coupled with a little bit of this improvement in state level tax revenues, you're starting to see some increases where they're going in and they're repairing old infrastructure and, repairing bridges, repairing streets. That doesn't even start to include some of the things that we also talk about, which is population expansion. Mm-hmm. Yep. So we talk a lot about some of the areas, like let's just talk about the DFW area only because it's just, first and foremost in our mind. We do a lot of work down there. And just think about the suburban sprawl that's taking place across the DFW area. They have no choice but to build out that infrastructure in those surrounding communities to be able to support that population expansion. And there's a number of states around the country and major metropolitan areas going through that same exact expansion. And so those states have got to pump in a lot of resources, and we know that that's coming. So, again, a lot of those factors, I think, are pushing. So we have the necessity and the demand. We've got need for new construction. We also have need for refurbishing and repairing old construction. And those factors combined, I think, along with some of the funding that's hitting the street now, literally, this is a green light, and I think we do see some good things ahead for this sector. It will never be the level of spending we want it to be at. We've been underfunded in national highway spending for decades, and we will continue to be that way, especially as the government comes under more pressure and budget focus on reducing the federal budget, and federal spending is going to be key. But most infrastructure bills get a lot of bipartisan support. They're very popular, and so I think that you'll see that continue. And the infrastructure bill itself, even though it wasn't just focused on what we consider traditional infrastructure, you're still going to see an incremental $50 billion a year pumped into annual spending over the next 5 to 6 years. So that will continue to help prop this up, especially as we kind of move from design and planning phases into actual construction and production phases.
Part of our job is to try to figure out where a lot of this construction is going to end up being. Maybe a harder decision is how long is it going to last, right? And then the third decision gets into how much more is really needed. Right. And this is one of those industries where there is certainly a lot of green pasture still left to be built out. But again, it's one of those scenarios where it's purely based on your local level. Like, how has the population grown over the last 2, 3, 4 years? How has the commercial development developed over the last 2, 3, 4 years? All that stuff has to have adequate highway and street accessibility, obviously. But we've been down in Texas almost every week for the last, I don't know how many quarters. I'm going back down next week. I just got through meeting with some firms down in Houston, like Cobb Finley. They've been around for a long time. And you look at how much work they've taken on, how much they've grown over the course of the last several years. I mean, it's phenomenal. Then you look at another company like Gradient, it's an emerging firm that's doing some great stuff. Young firm that's literally just consistently grown over the last couple of years. Again, they're looking at projections and they're saying, hey, we need more. Yes, we've knocked out a lot and built a lot of infrastructure and replaced some, but it's almost like they're at the beginning of their trajectory again,
right.
And it just keeps building momentum. So, I would encourage you, if you're a firm like Gradient or Garian Fields or Cobb Finley or a lot of these great civil engineering and construction companies, again, I would really urge you to get down into the details and start to dissect your different local markets and try to determine how much growth is left based on population and commercial development that you've seen, and then what you're expecting. If you are challenged with some of those answers, like most people are, that's what Keith and I are here for. We want to help you. But from a macro perspective and helping you understand how we think the turn is going to ultimately affect highway, streets, bridges, and roads, we don't. We think that this is green pasture, go, grow, and invest as a great one to continue to pursue, especially in high population projected areas. So anything else on this one, Keith?
I think that's about it. I mean, again, it's a go. If you refer back to that original slide we showed you, look at that long-term growth trend, and it's nothing but up.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. All right. Until then, lead on.